What's good, YouTube, and welcome to another KaibaHacksDartz Yu-Gi-Oh video. Today, we're here with something a little different. This is kind of a guide of sorts, and this is Pendulum Summoning for Dummies. Okay, I know Pendulum monsters can be a little daunting. What's all these numbers? Why do they got so much colors going on in the border? Why do they got two effects? We'll break it down here today, make it a little easier to understand, because Pendulum monsters can be pretty powerful. But like I said, a lot of people just don't really even know what's going on with them and just try to stay away from them. And it can add a lot more to the strategies of a deck and make things a little bit more confusing. So we'll try and break them down, like I said, make it a little easier. So of course, to start, if you don't know, Pendulum monsters are half monster, half spell. That's why they got that same color as a spell card, you know, that same blue. Of course, the pendulum scales, I guess you'd call them, or the numbers on the bottom and or bottom middle-ish left and right under these arrows. And basically, you're going to have numbers between 0 and 13 on them, and the numbers are always going to be the same. Now, with these cards, of course, they have their regular monster effect, like this little like hamster-looking thing. And when this card is destroyed by battle, you can target one card on the field and return it to the hand. So that's his monster effect. But of course, he also has a huge other effect that can be activated when he's in said pendulum scale. So that's going to be either of your left or right, most left or right spell and trap zone. You're going to activate these boys. And it's the same as a spell card. And of course, that spell effect is now active, but not their monster effect. I mean, unless, depending on what it is specifically, but for the most part, it's not going to be their, on-field effect that is going off. And as you can see, we have 3 on this, 8 on here. Now, what does that mean? Now, if you put these both down in your pendulum zones at the same time, you're able to pendulum summon monsters between 4 and 7. Not the number on the card. It's a common misconception. You know, you're not doing 3s and 8s. You're doing between 3 and 8. So not 3 or 8, but between. So with these boys, you could bring out, your Mild Turkey, because he's level 4. Your Drumrilla, because he's 5, I just got a random assortment of cards here, but only cards between 4 and 7. Or, between 3 and 8, sorry. So levels 4, between 4 and 7. Or 4 and 7, I'm confusing myself now, but you know what I mean. Between these two numbers. So like I said, they have to be in your pendulum zones, which is the farthest left and right of your spell and trap, and then you're able to pendulum summon. Pretty easy stuff, like I said. It's easy to get confused and see them as kind of a confusing concept, but you're basically just using them as spell traps, or speller traps, basically, and getting them out there face up, you know what I mean? They have to go face up. And in between those numbers, you're summoning, plus whatever effects they may have. Now, of course, there's also extra deck pendulum monsters, and for the most part, they're going to be having effects that can get them into the pendulum zone, because obviously they need to be in your hand to, activate them as a pendulum monster, or as a pendulum card, I guess, in the spell and trap zone. So they usually have a way to do that as an effect. Otherwise, the weirdness of where pendulum zone or pendulum monsters kind of come in as well is that instead of sending them to the graveyard, once they are, out on the field and sent to the graveyard, they are going to go on top of your extra deck, face up. Now, this can be a little daunting, it can be a little weird, but it's basically just a pendulum monster graveyard is on top of your extra deck. But the bonus of this is, if you are pendulum summoning and those monsters' levels are in between, the scale that you've set, then you can also Pendulum summon them as well. And it's, of course, you're not forced to summon all the monsters in between in whatever scale you've set. It is, of course, as many as you want, up to whatever, you know what I mean, whatever you have and are able to do. So they're going to go on top of your extra deck if they're sent from the field to the graveyard. There's a couple other little weird rules and misconceptions that can go on. Won't cover exactly everything in this video, but you can always just leave comments and I'll try and answer them as best, or start a little bit of a discussion. That way other people may see it and learn from your questions as well. But there's lots of Pendulum monsters, and like I said, from 0 to 13, so that way you can hit every level of monster. And once you kind of got past these basic concepts, play around with them a bit, I recommend just finding some Pendulum monsters, maybe picking up like a Pendulum starter deck if they still have some of those around, or looking up some basic kind of Pendulum decks and, getting into it. Especially, Master Duel, you could always just try and test around on there. Lots of structure decks and starter decks kind of on there that you can mess around with that have Pendulum stuff, so you can slowly learn the plays. Overall, they can seem really daunting and confusing, like I said, but it's not too much to learn. Of course, you could always watch the anime and kind of take in some inspiration from that. Not everything works exactly as it does in there. There might be different effects from monsters and such, but for the most part, you can learn from there. Otherwise, it's a pretty easy to understand concept. They're just spell monsters. You can summon them like normal. The same normal stuff goes on where you could summon Time Gazer Magician. But if you didn't want to do that, you can, of course, put him in the Pendulum scale zone. And it's not, it doesn't matter which side you put them. I see a lot of people get confused about this as well. So say if it's, we got the little hamster guy and Time Gazer, I could have them on either side, and it's between 3 and 8 regardless. Doesn't matter which side you put them on. It's just in between the two numbers that you've placed. But of course, you could always do an 8 and an 8. You know what I mean? And, you can't do anything with that. But, of course, you have them if you're trying to use their Pendulum effect. You know what I mean? As a kind of a spell instead of their monster. And, of course, there's lots of little weird monsters that have different weird effects for getting them into the Pendulum zone and bringing them back out and different stuff like that. And another cool kind of tidbit of information, if they do count as spells, so if you're using Mage Power or something that is counting for how many spells and traps you have, they do count towards that as well, but they're not like continuous or anything like that. They're just normal spells, not like quick plays or anything. So keep that in mind for whatever effects you may be using them for. But other than that, I think that mostly covers the different kind of weird trivia of the Pendulum monsters and how to use them. Like I said, they can be daunting. Soon I'm going to have some more kind of Pendulum decks coming onto the channel, so stay tuned for that, especially if you're interested in those kind of plays, because I think there is a lot of potential. But like I said, people are kind of confused by how Pendulum monsters work and don't really understand them, so they just kind of try and stay away, especially because there's double the card text, and a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players obviously don't like to read. But like I said, make sure to check out my other content. I make other guides kind of like this here and there. Probably make some more in the future, so let me know if you want to see more I can do for all the different types of summoning, fusion and Xyz and ritual and all, whatever stuff, the different types of summoning and maybe more weird mechanics of Yu-Gi-Oh and explaining them. But I have other videos, like I said, Yu-Gi-Oh DIY projects, remaking Dungeon Dice Monsters is one of our most recent series, but we're doing different stuff all the time, so stay tuned for that. And otherwise, make sure to comment if you have something to say, like, share, and subscribe. Hit that little notification bell so you know when future content's coming out. And let me know if I missed anything in this video. I could always do a part 2 if there's enough stuff that I kind of missed. But like I said, we could just kind of answer stuff in the comments. And lastly, make sure to check out the KaibaHacksDartz Discord, link in the description, where there's lots of discussions going on there about Yu-Gi-Oh, different formats, trading, all that kind of good stuff. So, like I said, thanks for watching. and peace.